Hey guys, tonight we journey into the disciplined, dramatic, and slightly dangerous world of a samurai in feudal Japan. You're not some high-ranking general or legendary warrior poet. Not yet. Just a mid-tier retainer in the service of a powerful daimyo. That means you still have chores, and blisters, and way too many rules to memorize before your first cup of tea. Your day starts before the sun even thinks about showing up. The sky is still that pale bruise color of deep night, and a rooster somewhere in the village below screams like it's auditioning for kabuki. You shift under your cotton futon, listening to the wind sigh against your paper walls. It's chilly, the kind of cold that makes your toes curl before they even touch the floor, but you roll up with military precision, hesitate, and you'll be late. Be late, and well, nobody wants a sword duel before breakfast. You slide open the shoji screen and shuffle onto the tatami mat, knees cracking with a satisfying pop. The room is bare, a simple scroll with calligraphy praising the virtue of patience, a stone lantern in the corner, and your two swords, katana and wakizashi, resting on a rack like sleeping dragons. You bow to them first. Always the swords. Then to the rising sun, still invisible, hiding behind a veil of indigo sky. First order of business? Ritual purification. You wash your face and hands with freezing water from a stone basin in the garden. You resist the urge to scream, but your eyes snap open like bamboo fans. A dry cloth waits beside a small shrine where incense curls in the air. Thin, fragrant tendrils of sandalwood and memory. You kneel briefly, whisper a silent chant to your ancestors, and let the smoke cling to your skin like a gentle warning. Stay honorable, or else. The house is silent except for the rhythmic sweeping of a servant outside. You hear the soft rustle of kimono sleeves, the gentle clink of a teacup being placed in another room. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Your clothing is prepped by your attendant, a young boy who's probably regretting every life choice that led to being assigned to you. He bows deeply and hands you your underrobe and hakama trousers. The fabric smells faintly of cedar. Layer by layer you armor yourself, not for battle, not yet, but for the slow duel that is daily life. A stiff obi sash cinches your waist tighter than your last sparring partner's grip, and you secure your top knot with practiced fingers. Mirror? Not a chance. You use the reflection in your polished wakizashi blade. A rooster crows again. Extra loud this time, possibly aimed directly at your ego. Here's your first reality check. You're still not fully awake, your stomach is growling like an oni in a storm, and the only thing that stands between you and breakfast is morning sword drills. You step out into the courtyard. The gravel crunches softly under your sandals, and the morning fog hugs your ankles like a needy spirit. Around you, other samurai, older, grimmer, far less enthused, gather for kenjutsu practice. The master arrives, his face as unreadable as a stone Buddha. He says nothing, just gestures. You bow. He bows. Then he attacks. Wooden swords, bakken, crack in the air like firecrackers. You parry, twist, duck, strike. It's brutal, beautiful, and a little humiliating. Someone loses a tooth. Not you, thankfully. That happens more often than you'd expect. Historians still argue whether these early morning duels were about skill development, or just a sanctioned outlet for pent-up rage. By the end, your robe is damp with sweat, your palms ache, and your sense of invincibility has taken a serious hit. You stagger toward the mess hall, praying for something edible. Breakfast is a simple affair. White rice, miso soup, and pickled vegetables that look like they've been insulted in 3 languages. You sit cross-legged, back straight, surrounded by other warriors. No one talks. Slurping is encouraged, if only to fill the awkward silence. The rice is hot, the soup's bland, and the pickled daikon burns the sides of your tongue like it holds a grudge. You chew thoughtfully, watching a bee struggle to escape a wooden beam overhead. It makes more progress than you did during practice. A senior retainer, grizzled, probably held together by sheer spite, leans over and mutters something about honor in simplicity. You're too hungry to argue. You just nod like you understood the poetic depth of this morning's radish. Outside, the fog is lifting. The sky turns a soft gray, and somewhere in the distance, the castle bell tolls once. It's time to prepare for your next challenge, being useful without stepping on the wrong toes. By the way, fun fact, some samurai carried tiny charms sewn into their kimono hems, little paper fortunes or amulets from shrines, not just for luck, sometimes for love, or poison resistance. Priorities, right? And here's the twist. Most modern images of samurai mornings come from Edo period sources, long after real battlefield glory had faded. Historians still argue whether your quiet, ritual-filled routine would have looked this polished back during the wilder Sengoku period. But let's just say you enjoy the theatrical version. It's easier to romanticize hardship when you're not literally freezing in chainmail. As you rise, brushing rice grains from your lap, you catch your reflection again. A young samurai, hair neatly tied, eyes sharp, hands blistered, feet sore, and a full day ahead that might include honor, blood, philosophy, taxes, and possibly poetry. You probably won't survive this, but that's tomorrow's problem. You return to your room, bellies somewhat full, limbs still stiff from sword practice, and it's time to groom, because while you might have just sparred with a man who tried to break your ribs, heaven forbid your hair's out of place. The air is warmer now, though not by much. A servant waits silently, kneeling near your low wooden table. Beside him, a tray holds grooming tools, a small bronze mirror, a carved ivory comb, and a razor so sharp it could humble your katana. You sit cross-legged, adjusting your robes, and he begins combing your hair with the solemnity of a monk preparing tea. You wince as the comb finds an ambitious tangle. He bows in apology. You say nothing, because this is part of it. Being samurai isn't just fighting battles. It's about control. Over others, over yourself, over that one extremely persistent cowlick at the back of your head. Once smoothed, he begins reshaping your top knot, your shanmage. It's the style that screams, yes, I will die honorably, but also with flair. The hair at the crown of your head is shaved, a custom meant to help helmets sit more comfortably, and less like a sweaty birdcage. The rest is oiled and folded into a neat knot. You look into the mirror. You look like a mildly annoyed lantern. Perfect. Next up is shaving. The blade kisses your cheek like a whisper from a disgruntled ghost. No soap, no fuss. Just steady hands, chilled water, and a prayer that the servant doesn't sneeze mid-stroke. You stay still. Samurai do not flinch. Once finished, you rinse again and dry your face on linen that feels like it's never met comfort. Then comes the incense, because you're not going to walk around smelling like fear and daikon. From a wooden box, you select a sliver of aloes wood, placing it on a tiny charcoal dish. As it warms, your room fills with a smoky richness, sweet, ancient, and slightly spicy, like a memory that lingers too long. You wave the incense toward your sleeves, letting the scent cling to your kimono and the edge of your soul. It's not vanity, it's tradition. Samurai were expected to carry themselves with dignity, even aromatically. In fact, during certain periods, kodo, the way of incense, was just as respected as swordplay. A well-scented warrior was one who understood balance, taste, and how not to smell like the inside of a horse. And then, armor time. You step into your armor room. It's not large, but the walls hold rows of lacquered plates, cords, and shin guards in rich hues of crimson and black. Today's set is Domaru style, more flexible than the boxy oyuroi worn by mounted archers. You don't ride much. You walk. A lot. So, comfort matters. Relatively speaking. You start with the underlayers, thick linen padding to soften the kiss of metal. Then come the sunite, greaves for your shins. You tie them tight, because nothing ruins a duel like floppy leg armor. Next is the haydate, thigh guards that feel like a chainmail apron, then coat, your armored sleeves. Steel plates sewn into silk, wrapping around your arms like patient snakes. The chest plate, comes last. Your servant helps you tie the cords at your back. Sometimes you wonder if the knots were designed more to protect you or to drive you insane. You flex, testing the fit. It squeaks. All good samurai armor squeaks. It's like the battle-ready version of breaking in new sneakers. And let's not forget the helmet, the kabuto. You place it gently on a stand for now, not quite ready to wear it unless arrows start flying before lunch. Its metal crest catches a beam of sunlight, casting a shadow on the wall that looks almost like a dragon. You smile. Some samurai decorated their helmets with antlers, horns, even terrifying masks designed to make enemies cry a little inside. Yours is plain. Someday, you'll earn the dragon crest, but for now, the steel speaks loudly enough. There's a knock at the door. A messenger, young, breathless, and absolutely not used to jogging uphill, bows deeply and presents a scroll. You break the seal with your thumb and scan the brush strokes. It's a notice. Your presence is requested at the main hall for midday instruction, probably poetry, or possibly a lecture on proper footwear etiquette. Samurai life, surprisingly administrative. You thank the boy and send him off with a rice cracker. He bows again. You swear he eats it mid-run. Outside, the day has fully bloomed. The sky is white-blue, cicadas scream from the trees, and the castle grounds are alive with the quiet tension of people pretending they're not stressed. You nod to passing servants, step over a meandering cat, and feel the weight of your armor settle into your bones. Not unbearable, but definitely heavier than honor. As you walk, you remember something strange your uncle once told you. That some samurai rubbed crushed chrysanthemum petals into their armor to ward off insects and bad luck. You tried it once. The insects seemed unfazed. You did win a dice game later that week though, so jury's still out. Historians still argue whether these daily rituals, grooming, incense, armor preparation, were as elaborate as later records suggest, or if most samurai simply slapped on what they could and hoped their enemies smelled worse. But today, you play your part. Precision is power. Routine is armor. You reach the main hall, remove your sandals, bow, step inside. The floor is polished, the air thick with incense, and the tatami feels like a welcome mat to something sacred, or at least bureaucratic. You're here. You look the part, smell the part, feel mostly alive. Now it's time to learn how to bleed with grace. You kneel with the others, your knees sinking into the tatami like old friends returning to an awkward reunion. The room is quiet, except for the soft shuffle of robes and the distant rhythmic clack of bamboo chimes swaying in the courtyard breeze. A thin line of incense smoke spirals into the rafters, smelling faintly of cloves and burnt pages. At the head of the room sits your sensei, the castle's appointed instructor for all things literary and philosophical. He's thin, hawk-eyed, and radiates an intensity that suggests he could probably kill you with a haiku. His kimono is a pale gray, his beard immaculately trimmed, and his fan, yes, he wields a fan, is known to swat wandering minds back into focus with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Today's subject? Poetry. Specifically, the crafting of a waka, a short, 5-line poem. You suppress a groan. You'd rather polish armor with your teeth. But then again, part of being samurai is accepting that sword and scroll carry equal weight. Or at least, they're supposed to. The lesson begins. The sensei speaks softly, like he's afraid to startle the silence. He recites verses written by court poets hundreds of years ago, each word falling into place like stones in a calm stream. The mountain echoes. In the stillness of the snow, a crane lifts its wing. I too must learn to rise, though burdened by honor's weight. You try not to nod off. But here's the twist. Poetry isn't just some noble pastime. It's a tool, a test. Daimyo often used literary ability to judge a warrior's discipline, clarity of thought, and, let's be honest, how well you could impress at banquets. A clever verse could earn you a promotion. A bad one? Social suicide. So, you write, clumsily, slowly. You stare at the blank parchment like it personally insulted your ancestors. You dip your brush in ink, which smells like damp moss and burned toast, and scribble something about wind, sorrow, and koi fish. It's not good. It's not even readable. But you look busy, which is key. Your friend beside you, a wiry samurai with an annoying talent for everything, scribbles with smug elegance. You hope his ink spills. When the session ends, you bow to the sensei, who barely acknowledges you. Victory, you're dismissed. But freedom is a myth. A retainer enters, another scroll, another summons. This time, diplomacy practice. With your daimyo's bugyo, his administrator. Excellent. Nothing screams samurai like simulated tax negotiations. You exit the hall, retightening your armor straps. As you walk the gravel path toward the council chamber, a small group of children run past, chasing a wooden hoop and laughing with the kind of joy no adult ever has time for. One of them, a little girl with a fierce frown, swings a wooden sword almost your size and shouts, "Die with honor!" Her friends collapse, giggling. You give her a small bow. Future general, for sure. Inside the council room, the air is dry and smells like paper and disappointment. The bugyo is waiting, stiff-backed, sharp-eyed, and dressed in layers of dull browns that make him resemble a very serious tree. You sit opposite him on your knees, palms on thighs, posture perfect. The floor between you holds a tray with ink, scrolls, and a mock land dispute document that looks suspiciously real. This is a test. It always is. He gestures. You begin. You make your case, slowly, using respectful terms and layers of indirect politeness so convoluted even the paper seems confused. You propose terms, concede fictional rice harvests, and delicately insult a non-existent village elder's honor in the most roundabout way possible. It's like a duel, but instead of swords, you're wielding metaphors and passive aggression. And here's the kicker. Diplomacy was expected of samurai, especially those in higher ranks. You weren't just a warrior, you were a bureaucrat, a landlord, a legal expert, and on especially tragic days, an event planner. Historians still argue whether this diluted the samurai's warrior spirit, or simply proved how dangerous a man could be with both a katana and a ledger. Your negotiation ends. The bugyo nods. He says nothing, which either means you passed, or failed so spectacularly he's writing your name on a list. You rise, bow deeply, and make your exit. Back in the sunlight, your head aches. Your stomach is eyeing your kidneys with resentment. It's nearly midday, time to pray. You walk through the castle gardens, where stepping stones wind through raked gravel and miniature pines curl into disciplined spirals. At the edge of the inner grounds stands a small shrine. Shinto, of course. Red torii gate, stone fox statues, white zigzag shide paper hanging from the ropes like sacred lightning. You purify your hands again with water from the basin. You ring the bell, clang, and clap twice, bowing once. You say your prayer. It's short, silent, and entirely yours. Probably something about staying alive through lunch. And while most samurai followed Zen Buddhism, many also made offerings at Shinto shrines, believing spirits, kami, inhabited everything from swords to trees to their own trembling ambition. Some carried charms blessed by shrine maidens, others tied wishes to branches. One samurai was even said to have adopted a carp as his spiritual guardian. Historians still debate whether it was metaphor or just a very lucky fish. You linger a moment longer, letting the wind cool your face. The fox statue watches. You bow to it, just in case. Back to the mess hall. Lunch is simple: barley rice, grilled fish, a few slices of radish, and tea that tastes like it's seen too much. You eat slowly. The hall hums with quiet conversation. Someone's recounting a dream they had about falling into a pit full of no masks. Another grumbles about his horse being smarter than him. You sip your tea, wishing for sake. But no. Discipline. Always discipline. You finish your meal, clean your tray, and step outside. Midday sun. Bright. Relentless. Your next task? Supervise some ashigaru, low-ranking foot soldiers, on their spear drills. Think of it as babysitting, but the toddlers are armed and have questionable depth perception. You sigh. You stretch. You walk. The life of a samurai. One breath at a time, one brushstroke at a time, one awkward poem about fish at a time. You arrive at the training grounds just as a spear thuds into the dirt, tipped down, wobbling like a bamboo toothpick. The ashigaru scatter, clearly caught mid-horseplay. One has a shoe in his hand. Another looks like he was halfway through trying to balance a spear on his forehead. Classic. You sigh, loudly. The universal sound of disappointed mentorship. The moment they see you, the chaos drains out of them like soup from a cracked bowl. Bows are quick, sheepish. One lad nearly folds himself in half. You nod silently, step forward, and pick up the wobbly spear. It's light. Too light. The balance is off. These are for fighting, you say calmly, not for juggling like street monkeys. Silence. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. Then you motion for drills. They fall in line, 6 of them, feet apart, spears forward, eyes locked on an invisible enemy. You walk the line, correcting stances, adjusting grips, and tapping ankles with the back of your wakizashi when necessary. Not hard, just enough to remind them. Balance starts at the feet. You demonstrate a thrust. Straight, fluid, precise. They mimic, less fluidly, like ducks doing ballet. You don't laugh. Out loud. Ashigaru weren't samurai. They didn't have the bloodline, the schooling, or the family crests. But they were necessary. The backbone of every campaign. Poor farmers trained to fight with spears and desperation. You'd led them before. Some fought well. Some ran faster than deer in mating season. You correct another stance. This one's too stiff. Like he thinks dying in formation earns extra rice. Relax your knees, you say. Tight legs make slow warriors and corpses. He nods, mutters an apology. You move on. The drills go on for an hour. Thrust, step, recover. Again, again. One boy asks when they'll learn the cool moves. You raise a brow. You mean the ones that get you killed faster? He shuts up. Eventually, you call a break. They drop to the ground like overcooked noodles. You walk the perimeter, scanning the edge of the practice yard. The trees sway. A crow cackles. Somewhere, a temple bell chimes. The scent of sweat, pine, and hot earth fills your nose. This, too, is war. You glance down and notice a curious stone, flat, shaped like a turtle shell. You pocket it, for luck, or for throwing at someone later. Historians still argue whether samurai took their roles as trainers seriously or simply viewed Ashigaru as cannon fodder. But here now, you do your duty. You don't have to like them. Just make sure they're slightly less dead tomorrow. Back up, you say. Breaks over. Groans rise like ghosts. You don't smile, but your soul snickers. Suddenly, a runner appears at the edge of the field, panting, pale, clearly terrified of stairs. He bows and hands you a folded message. You break the seal. Patrol duty, great. The perimeter of the outer village needs a samurai presence. Bandit sightings, probably exaggerated. Still, ignoring such reports means losing face, and possibly losing villagers. And no lord wants to lose either. You dismiss the Ashigaru. Practice thrusts until your arms fall off, then switch arms. They blink. Unsure if you're serious. You don't clarify. You head to the stables. The air inside smells like hay, manure, and centuries of regret. Your horse, a stocky bay named Koma, greets you with a snort and a stomp. He's not fast, not elegant, but he doesn't try to kill you like the last one did. You saddle him with practiced hands, adjusting the straps and whispering nonsense about how he's your only true friend. He ignores you, as always. You mount and ride through the western gate, where a cluster of guards nod as you pass. Beyond lies the village, clusters of wooden homes, rice paddies stretching out like green mirrors, and the steady hum of ordinary life. You patrol slowly, children wave, elders bow. A merchant offers you a rice cake on the house. You take it and pretend it's not the best thing you've eaten all day. You check on the blacksmith, the granary, the narrow bridge where a drunk once claimed to see a ghost waving at him. Nothing unusual, but always, eyes scanning, listening, looking. There's a moment, brief, quiet, where you pause at the edge of a rice paddy. The wind moves through the stalks like fingers through hair. The sky is a silver bowl. You breathe deep. Then, movement. A figure darts near the tree line. You dismount. Quietly. Draw your katana, not with drama, but with purpose. You move forward. Soft steps. No sound but your own breath. Behind the trees, nothing. A deer bolts. Startled by your presence, or perhaps your smell. Hard to tell. Still, you watch for a moment longer. Something's off. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe tomorrow someone finds a missing rice farmer and wonders if you could have stopped it. You ride back. Evening creeps in, soft and gold. The sky dims. The cicadas resume their choir, and lanterns flicker to life around the village. Smoke curls from chimneys. Someone's cooking fish. Back at the castle gates, the guards let you in. You stable coma, pat his flank. He grunts, unimpressed. You stretch, your back popping like a rice cracker, and head toward the bathhouse. You've earned this. The bathhouse is small, but clean. Steam wafts into the evening air like ghostly silk. You strip down, modestly, because even hardened warriors fear towel accidents. You step into the water slowly, heat wrapping your tired limbs like a scalding hug. You sink. You exhale. And for a moment, the weight lifts. Armor, duty, diplomacy, deer that may or may not be spies. Baths were sacred to samurai. Not just for hygiene, but clarity. Warm water, clean skin, focused mind. Some even claimed that soaking just before battle brought luck. Others said it made you too soft. Historians still argue about that too. You stay until your fingers prune. You leave with the calm of a monk and the hunger of a bear. Dinner's next. Hopefully not just pickled sadness and boiled disappointment. You dry off with a cloth that's seen better centuries and slip back into your casual yukata, a soft indigo robe that smells faintly of cedar and old soap. Your hair is damp, your skin is warm, and for just a few blessed moments, you feel more noodle than warrior. Dinner is served in the evening hall, where low tables are arranged neatly on woven mats. Candles flicker in bronze holders, casting long shadows against the wooden walls. The scent hits first. Miso broth, grilled eel, and a faint tang of fermented pickles that makes your stomach growl like a caged bear. You sit with fellow samurai, each lost in their own world of exhaustion and social performance. You nod to the one beside you. He grunts. That's practically a sonnet. A young kitchen attendant kneels and serves your tray with a deep bow. Tonight's fare: rice topped with sesame, slices of pickled daikon, miso soup with tofu, and a modest fillet of eel, sweet, sticky, and slightly charred at the edges. There's even a small dish of tsukemono, the pickled vegetables that seem to exist purely to ruin friendships. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, letting your mind drift. Someone begins humming a folk tune a few tables down. Someone else tries to remember whether Lord Fujiwara lost his front teeth in a duel or a clumsy fall. The answer? Both. You sip tea and realize how heavy your limbs feel, like you're sinking deeper into the floor. It's not just the food, it's the whole day settling into your bones. One of the younger samurai leans over and whispers, "Did you hear about the ghost again? Behind the west wall?" You nod. Of course. There's always a ghost. Some say it's the spirit of a disgraced samurai who took his life after failing to defend his lord. Others say it's a peasant looking for his lost ox. A few insist it's just a sickly cat with trust issues. Historians still debate whether such stories reflect real hauntings or just clever excuses to avoid patrol. Someone laughs, someone scoffs, someone makes a bet to spend the night out there. You eat your eel. Once dinner is finished, everyone performs a short bow toward the head of the room, even if the daimyo isn't present. Respect doesn't clock out. As you leave the dining hall, the night greets you like a cool towel. Crickets sing. Lanterns bob in the breeze. The moon, a pale coin, hangs low over the castle rooftops. You glance up and feel small, in the best way. But the day's not done. Not quite. There's night duty to attend. Tonight, it's your turn for gate watch. Not the most thrilling assignment, but still important. Every gate has a post, and every post has a scroll to sign, with precise times, names, and the occasional doodle added by bored guards. You make your way there, sandals whispering against the stone. At the outer gate, 2 guards stand stiffly. One's chewing something that might be plum, might be regret. You relieve them with a nod, take your place near the heavy wooden beams, and begin your watch. It's quiet, which is the point. You listen to the night. A distant owl, a creaking shutter, the splash of water as someone dumps out a basin. You lean against the gate and let your eyes adjust. Even in stillness, you're alert. You think about your father. He used to say that real warriors knew how to wait. Swinging a sword is easy, he'd say. Knowing when not to swing it? That's the hard part. He also said you should never trust a man who wears too much perfume and owns no dog. Wisdom comes in all flavors. Time creeps by. A courier arrives, breathless, scroll in hand. You check his crest, confirm his seal, and wave him through. His horse looks more tired than he does. You mark the scroll log and glance up at the stars. One shoots silently across the sky, as if fleeing responsibility. Eventually, your shift ends. You bow to the next watchman, hand off the duty scroll, and shuffle back toward your quarters. Your legs ache. Your eyelids conspire against you. Inside your room, a simple futon waits. Tatami mats beneath. A folded blanket. A tiny shelf holding your calligraphy kit, a jade comb, and a worn woodblock print of Mount Fuji. You kneel. You bow. You change into a nightrobe. Scratch at your shoulder where the armor rubbed raw, and finally, collapse onto the futon. But not before writing. Every samurai is expected to keep a journal, or at least a written record of some kind. Not necessarily profound, just honest. Thoughts, observations, little poems even. You unroll a fresh page, dip your brush in ink, and write. Another day ends, the gate held fast against dark. Moon watches in peace. You blot the paper dry. Not bad. Might win you a nod from the poetry instructor, or a smack. Then, just as you're about to extinguish the lamp, you hear something outside, a soft clack. Footsteps? You pause. Hold your breath. Nothing. Maybe a cat. Maybe the wind. Maybe that ghost again, looking for better company. You blow out the flame. Darkness wraps around you like a second robe. The night settles in your lungs. Your body, finally still, begins to sink. Sleep whispers, slow and low, like the rustle of silk over stone. Somewhere in the castle, a bell chimes midnight. You are, at last, alone with the quiet. Morning comes, again, before your body's ready for it. You wake to the soft creak of floorboards, someone pacing nearby. A bird sings like it's auditioning for lead soprano, and somewhere outside, a broom scratches stone in steady, meditative strokes. Your eyes creak open. The world is still a bit sideways. You sit up slowly. Muscles protest. Your shoulder feels like it's been gnawed on by a temple lion. That's the price of sleeping on your side in armor the day before. You go through the routine with practiced dullness, folding your futon, straightening your robe, washing your face with icy water that slaps you more awake than any tea ever could. A small mirror reflects your sleep-squished hair and a face that looks more philosopher than fighter this morning. Then it's time for the sword check. Your katana rests beside the calligraphy shelf, wrapped neatly. You unwrap it, inspecting every inch. Blade clean, no rust, no nicks. A samurai's sword wasn't just a weapon, it was his soul. Losing it, or worse, disrespecting it, was like insulting your ancestors and their favorite recipes. Satisfied, you rewrap it with care and tuck it into your sash. Your wakizashi joins it, a shorter blade, but not a lesser one. Breakfast is quiet. Miso again, rice again, maybe a quail egg if the kitchen was feeling generous. You eat without complaint. Hunger makes food sacred, and in truth, you're just grateful it's warm. Today's assignment arrives on a thin, cracked scroll. You're to escort a diplomat from a neighboring province. Oh joy. Nothing like trying to stay awake while someone talks about border irrigation disputes for 4 straight hours. You meet him in the southern courtyard, a lean man in fine robes, all polished words and wary glances. He bows too deeply. His servant bows deeper. You return a polite nod and lead them through the main gate. This is where diplomacy happens. Not in grand halls with poetry and sake, but on dusty roads with creaking wheels and tense silences. You walk ahead, occasionally turning to offer polite remarks. The diplomat responds with stories about his lord's prized koi fish and how they were once kidnapped during a lightning storm. Riveting stuff. Eventually, he says something mildly offensive about your clan's banner. You smile the way a wolf might smile before chewing a goat's leg. Ah, you say. I'll be sure to pass that along, right after we get back. Assuming we survive bandits, of course. He pales slightly. You let it hang there. Truth is, the roads were dangerous. Bandits, rogue ronin, even starving farmers with more desperation than sense. Historians still argue how widespread rural violence really was, but there are enough skeletons in ditches to suggest it wasn't all peaceful rice farming and tea ceremonies. As you walk, your eyes never stop moving. Trees, rocks, shadows. Your hand rests near your sword hilt. Not threatening, just ready. That's the line you walk as a samurai, not provoking danger, but promising to end it. Hours pass. The diplomat finally quiets down. Maybe he senses you're not a fan of koi. You reach the next village, where a small checkpoint offers rest. The guards recognize your crest and let you through with minimal fuss. A few children peek out from behind baskets. One of them waves. You wink. The diplomat is shown to a guest house. You remain outside, watching the sun begin its slow descent. Your break is brief. An old woman offers you barley tea in a cracked cup. It's lukewarm, tastes like wet socks, but you drink it gratefully. Hospitality is a battlefield of its own. Then, movement again. A young boy runs into the square, panting, yelling about a thief in the granary. You groan inwardly, because of course, why not? You stand, hand on hilt, and jog after him. He leads you to a storage hut, where the door hangs open and rice spills out like a guilty trail. You follow it around the corner and find the thief. She's maybe 10 years old. Thin, barefoot, cheeks flushed with shame and fear. A ragged sack of rice clutched in both arms like treasure. She freezes. You stop, not 10 paces away. No sword, no shouting. Why? You ask softly. She says nothing. Her stomach growls for her. You sigh. Deeply. Heavily. Then you step forward, take the bag gently, and hand her half the rice back. Return the rest, you say. Ask the temple for food next time. Not the granary. She stares at you like you've sprouted wings. Then she runs. Back at the hut, a minor official is waiting. He looks furious, wants the thief's name, wants punishment. You tell him it was a wild dog. Big one. Ran off fast. He frowns. He's not an idiot, but he also knows when to leave a samurai alone. As you return to the guest house, you wonder whether you did the right thing. Maybe that girl returns tomorrow with friends and empties the whole granary. Or maybe she eats for the first time in days. Historians still argue whether samurai were truly compassionate or simply used mercy as another tool of control. But you don't write essays, you just act. You'll live with it. The diplomat's ready to move again. He says nothing about koi this time. The return trip is quieter, dusk falling like a shawl over the forest. The sky turns orange, then bruised purple. Shadows lengthen. The world slows. You make it back to the castle just as the torches are being lit. You bow. He bows. He leaves. You say nothing about the thief. Back in your quarters, you take out your journal. You write, "Some hunger breaks rules. Some rules must bend to feed it. A full bowl buys peace." You lay your brush down. Your fingers ache. Another day, full of small choices, heavy silences, and quiet defiance. And tomorrow, another scroll, another order, another moment to decide who you are beneath the armor. But for now, sleep. You wake to rain, not a gentle sprinkle or a poetic drizzle. No, this is the kind of rain that seems personally offended by everything. It drums on the roof tiles like a battalion of angry frogs and rushes through the gutters like it's trying to wash away the century itself. You groan softly and roll onto your side. Rain means mud. Mud means patrols become swamp expeditions. And your sandals, well, they were barely surviving sunshine, let alone this. After the usual routine, wash, teeth, grim internal monologue, you make your way to the courtyard. The world is gray and soaked, cloaked in fog that wraps around buildings and softens even the harshest lines of the fortress. Your robe clings to you in places you'd rather not discuss. Today's duty scroll? Perimeter inspection. Of course. On foot. You bow to the quartermaster, who offers you a bundle of oiled paper and a dead-eyed expression that says, "I'm dry, you're not, deal with it." You take the maps, tuck them into your sleeve, and begin. The walls are slick with moss and rain. You walk carefully, testing each step. Beneath your feet, the flagstones weep. The moat, usually calm, is churning, a watery beast snapping at its stone cage. As you walk, you pass other guards, hooded, hunched, and about as thrilled as you are. You nod. They nod. No one speaks. The rain says enough. You reach the North Watchtower, where a young samurai is trying to light a fire with the determination of a man in denial. You offer him a flintstone and a look of pity. He nods gratefully. The inspection itself is slow and tedious. You check locks, test gates, and peer into the fog like it owes you money. There's no real threat today, but that's exactly when threats love to show up. Historically, samurai castles weren't impenetrable fortresses. They were practical, defendable, and designed to stall invaders until reinforcements could arrive, or until everyone inside ran out of arrows and grudges. And then, somewhere between checkpoint 7 and why am I even awake, you hear it. A distant thunk. Then another. You freeze. Hand to hilt. There, near the outer storehouse, something moves. You crouch low, creeping through the rain-slick path like a cat made of bad decisions. You peek around the corner and spot two men in unfamiliar garb attempting to pry open the rice gate. Bandits, or perhaps desperate locals, maybe just stupid. You draw your blade silently. The sound it makes, even in rain, is unmistakable. A whisper of steel. A promise. "Drop it," you say. They turn. One runs, the other stumbles backward, slips in the mud, and lands with a squelch that would be hilarious under any other circumstances. You don't strike. Not yet. You ask his name. He gives you a lie. You ask again. This time, it sounds more like a threat. He breaks. Tells you about a failed harvest, a sick mother, a hungry baby. You lower your sword. Again, you're faced with the ugly truth. Your blade solves problems, but not the right ones. You march him to the holding chamber, soaking wet and looking more like a drowned radish than a criminal. You speak with the captain of the guard, who agrees to hold the man for questioning, but not to punish him until the daimyo reviews the case. Back in your quarters, you peel off your robe like a second skin. You're wet, sore, and hungry. Your sandals have officially given up. You're convinced they whispered, "Just let me go," as you set them aside. Lunch is late and cold. Steamed fish, pickled root, and rice that clumps like shame. You eat every bite. No one complains about food when they've just met someone who tried to steal it. The afternoon brings an unexpected reprieve. Indoor training. A welcome break from the elements. Inside the dojo, the polished wooden floors are cool underfoot. You stretch, joints cracking like old doors, and face your sparring partner. A woman from a visiting clan, known for her precise strikes and terrifying footwork. She bows. You bow. Then she tries to take your head off. Training swords clap together with wet slaps. You parry. She pivots. You lunge. She dodges. Your movements blur into a sweaty, breathless rhythm. Strike, block, spin, duck, counter. You both grin like fools. This is the good part. The pure part. No politics, no starving villagers, no rain-soaked duty scrolls, just the simple, sharp joy of a fight you can actually win. Eventually, the instructor calls it. You both bow again, panting. "Better," she says. "You too," you lie. After class, you sit on the bench, sweat cooling on your neck. Another samurai joins you, idly adjusting his wrist wraps. "You hear about the shrine bell?" he asks. You shake your head. "Cracked last night. No one touched it. Just split in two." Strange. It was centuries old, made of bronze and myths. People said it was blessed. Others said cursed. Historians still argue whether objects like that held cultural power or simply reflected it. You nod. Maybe it cracked from the weight of prayers. Evening creeps in, dragging fog behind it. Dinner is mercifully hot. Soba noodles with green onions and a broth that tastes like heaven boiled in soy. You eat slowly, lost in the warmth. Tonight, there's no gate watch. Just a late meeting with the castle's chronicler. A strange little man with ink-stained fingers and eyes that never blink. He asks about your day. You tell him everything. Almost everything. He scribbles, mutters, scratches his chin. "You spared another thief?" he asks. You nod. "Trouble will come of that," he says. "Trouble comes either way. you reply. He hums, then writes it down. Maybe one day your words will live longer than your body. Or maybe they'll just fill space on a shelf no one ever dusts. Back in your room, you light a small lantern. Outside, the rain has slowed. Just a whisper now. You write. Even rain grows tired. Even bells fall silent, cracked. But I still stand. Wet. You laugh softly. Not your best work. But it's honest. The futon waits. You stretch out. The ache in your knees is now part of your personality. You exhale. The rain fades. You close your eyes. And for once, you dream of nothing. It starts with shouting. Distant, muffled at first, like someone arguing with a ghost. Then the clanging, iron on stone, a bell that shouldn't be ringing this early unless the castle's on fire, or under siege. You sit up so fast you nearly somersault off the futon. Still in your underrobe, no time for tea, no time to stretch. You reach for your armor with fumbling hands. Breastplate, sleeves, thigh guards, done in record time. You shove your katana into your sash like it's insulted you and bolt for the door. The corridor is chaos. Half-dressed warriors running, servants yelling about a breach, someone tripping over a tray of pickled radish that now resembles battlefield shrapnel. You leap over it, charging toward the southern wall, where the noise concentrates like angry bees around a hive. As you emerge into the main courtyard, the sky is still pink with pre-dawn. Smoke curls lazily into the air. Someone lit the signal fire. That's when you see them. Not enemies. Messengers. You skid to a halt, breathing like a broken bellows. One of them, a boy no older than 15, bows so low his forehead nearly digs a trench. False alarm, he wheezes. Travelers. Mistook a caravan for bandits. Gate guards overreacted. You stare at him, then at the dozen other samurai now awkwardly standing around in battle gear, trying not to look like they just sprinted half asleep into a perfectly normal Tuesday. A senior officer barks something about running drills anyway, since you're already here and look ridiculous. You don't argue. You're still recovering from the whiplash of emotional roller coastering. So, drills it is. You fall into line, rain-damp armor squeaking in all the wrong places. Sword out. Bow ready. You go through the motions, blocking, striking, crouching, rotating in practiced spirals. The rhythm is comforting, like brushing your teeth with violence. As you train, the sky brightens, and so do tempers. Laughter starts to bubble up. One samurai drops his helmet mid-spin and mutters something about his ancestors disowning him. Another gets whacked square in the ribs and lets out a yelp that echoes off the outer walls. This is the strange beauty of castle life. Tension and relief, fear and farce, always sitting side by side like badly matched roommates. Historians still argue whether life in a samurai compound was strictly regimented or laced with unpredictability, but you're living proof that it's probably both, and always at the worst possible time. After the drills, you're given an odd task: escorting a foreign guest. He's from Ryukyu, or maybe Korea, it's not clear, and nobody wants to ask twice. He's draped in robes that shimmer faintly, and he smells like jasmine and ocean wind. He greets you with a bow that's polite but distant. You walk through the garden together. He comments on the cherry trees, though they haven't bloomed yet. I heard they blossom so briefly, he says, a symbol of beauty and death. You nod. Also a symbol of allergies. He doesn't laugh, but he does blink. Progress. The real reason he's here becomes clear when he requests to see your sword. You oblige, presenting the blade with both hands. He examines it like a scholar with a rare text, murmuring something about the curvature and craftsmanship. This is where things get delicate. Samurai blades were sacred, forged with ritual, tempered with folded steel, and often blessed. Letting a foreigner handle one? That's like loaning someone your grandmother's ashes for a weekend. But he doesn't ask to touch it, just looks. Then bows again. Respectful. Later, you learn he's an envoy, here to discuss trade routes and silk tariffs. But what he really wanted was to assess whether your clan was sharp. Literally and metaphorically. After he leaves, your superior pats you on the back like he's congratulating a cow for not tipping over. You didn't insult him, he says. Well done. You decide not to mention the allergy joke. By midday, the castle quiets, the false alarm forgotten. Most return to their duties, but you're given something rare. A few hours off. You head for the baths. Now let's take a moment to appreciate this. Because if the sword is the soul of the samurai, then the bathhouse is the soul's favorite vacation spot. The steam greets you like an old friend. You strip, step into the scalding water, and exhale so deeply you might have expelled a past life. Muscles melt. Time slows. Someone nearby hums a folk tune about a lovesick fox. You soak until your fingers wrinkle, and your armor-induced back pain considers retiring. Then, a curious moment. An older samurai enters. Grizzled. Scarred. He sits beside you in silence. After a while, he says, "I once killed a man who smiled as he died." You glance at him, unsure what to say. He doesn't elaborate. Instead, he murmurs, "We wear armor so they don't see how much we think. But sometimes, I wish they would." You nod. The steam doesn't ask questions, and neither do you. After the bath, you wander through the outer courtyard. There, an artist is painting the wall panels, delicate cranes and pine trees, ink flowing like water across parchment. You pause to watch. He notices. "Ever paint?" he asks. You shake your head. He hands you a brush. You dab a small line, too thick, awkwardly curved. He laughs gently. Even a sword hand can make soft lines. Maybe, but your lines look like a drunk worm on a dare. Still, it's peaceful. No expectations, no duty scrolls, just ink and air. Later, as the sun begins to dip, you head back to your quarters. You pass the messenger boy from earlier. He bows deeply again. "Sorry about the panic," he says. You grin. Next time, make sure it's at least real panic. Back in your room, you light a single candle and pick up your journal. You write, "False alarm at dawn." Yet the blade still leaves its sheath. Even jokes wear armor. You sip barley tea, feet warm against the tatami. And you realize something. Even without a real battle, today was full of warfare. Diplomacy, honor, reputation, inner peace. Each their own front line. Each demanding something of you. The candle flickers. You let the silence hold you. Tomorrow will come. And you'll rise again. Your feet ache. Your muscles groan like old wood. But rest is a luxury that rarely visits a samurai household when night creeps in, and especially not tonight. A faint knock at your door, and there it is. A summons. You open it to find a servant holding a lacquered tray, not with food, but a folded message. The seal belongs to your lord himself. That's never a sign that you'll be offered tea and cookies. You open it slowly, as if the ink might bite. It reads, "Report to the inner audience chamber. Wear formal attire." You sigh, deep and theatrical. There goes your quiet night. Back into ceremonial armor, shinier, stiffer, and 800% less comfortable than the one you trained in earlier. The kind of gear that makes you feel like a decorative statue with poor circulation. But duty is duty, and appearances are everything. You make your way through hushed corridors, where shadows stretch like rumors. Servants avoid eye contact. Lamps flicker with an indecisive glow. The audience chamber looms ahead. Inside, the floor gleams like a mirror, and incense coils drift lazily in the rafters. You kneel, spine arrow straight, before the low dais where your lord sits in absolute stillness. He looks at you, not past you, not through you, at you. "Tell me about the visitor," he says. So you do. Brief, honest, to the point. You describe his tone, his gaze, the way he studied your blade like a priest examining a relic. You mention the conversation, the awkward but peaceful silence, and yes, if you must, you mention the tree joke. You don't repeat it though. You're not a complete fool. Your lord listens without blinking. Then he says, "Good." That's it. Just good. But in samurai diplomacy, that's practically a standing ovation. Still kneeling, your legs now numb, you receive a second instruction. You're to accompany a small group on a nocturnal perimeter sweep. Because why sleep when you can sneak around like a paranoid raccoon? You bow, stand, and prepare. Again. Your group gathers at the North Watchtower. 4 samurai, including you. One is a man who never speaks unless asked directly. Another hums constantly under his breath, even when he walks. The third is a woman known for her perfect archery and terrifying sense of humor. She once shot an arrow so close to her sparring partner's ear that he started praying to chairs for a week. Together, you set off into the night. The air is cold, heavy with fog. Your lanterns are shielded. Small circles of gold in a world painted gray. Crickets chirp like they don't realize their audience is armed. You move quietly along the outer edge of the estate. Past the koi ponds, the bamboo groves, the shrine where someone left an offering of sweet rice dumplings. You resist the temptation to swipe one. Barely. This is where it gets interesting. Because while samurai were warriors, they were also expected to act as guards, not just from outside threats, bandits, spies, rival clans, but from internal mischief too. Drunken retainers, jealous cousins, even the occasional ninja, though historians still argue whether ninjas truly prowled like shadows or were just convenient scapegoats for missing scrolls and broken vases. Tonight, however, no ninja. Just something weirder. At the edge of the forest, your group stops. A sound, low, repetitive, a rhythmic clanging. You signal for silence, crouch low, and inch forward. And there, in the moonlight, is the village blacksmith, hammering, at midnight, shirtless, sweaty, and mumbling to himself in a way that suggests either divine inspiration or a serious head injury. "Oi!" your archer companion calls out, stepping into the clearing. The blacksmith doesn't flinch. He keeps hammering. You finally get close enough to see what he's working on. It's a statue of a cat, clad in samurai armor, with a very smug expression. "What are you doing?" you ask, not sure whether to draw your blade or take notes. The blacksmith pauses, wipes his brow, and grins. "Had a dream," he says. "A cat saved my life. Figured it earned a shrine." You all look at each other. Then, like true warriors, you say nothing and move on. Because some battles just aren't worth it. You circle back toward the castle, finding nothing else more threatening than a startled crane and a disgruntled badger who seems to have lost its sense of direction. Back at the tower, you part ways. Your armor comes off in slow motion. You hang it neatly, as required. You rub your aching shoulders and take a moment to stare out the window. The moon's high now, bathing the courtyard in soft silver. Lanterns flicker along the pathways, casting sleepy shadows on the gravel. In the distance, you see movement, a servant carrying a tray of late-night snacks, grilled eel, probably, for some bureaucrat too important to eat at normal hours. You watch him vanish behind a screen. Your stomach growls. Loudly. You briefly consider raiding the kitchens, but remember the last guy who did that ended up on water duty for a month. You decide to chew a piece of dried persimmon instead. Not satisfying, but it keeps your dignity intact. At last, finally, you return to your room. You slide the door shut, lay out your futon, and sink into it like a stone into still water. Outside, a night bird sings. Somewhere in the castle, a door creaks. Possibly the cat again, possibly something stranger. But you're too tired to investigate. You think about the statue, the foreigner, the drills, the moment in the bathhouse. You think about what it means to be ready at all times, even when you're not, even when it's absurd, even when the threat turns out to be a shirtless man sculpting a feline samurai in the woods. Historians still argue whether these castle patrols were mostly ceremonial or served a true defensive purpose. But for you, tonight, they felt real. If not for the danger, then for the clarity they bring. The stillness inside motion. The small, strange stories that unfold when no one's watching. You blow out the lamp. The room goes dark. And for the first time today, your body fully lets go. You sleep. But the sword? The sword never does. But that sleep, peaceful as it begins, doesn't last long. Because before your dreams can settle into anything delightful, like say floating on a rice cake down a warm sake river, you hear it. Drums. Low, deep, and distant. Not the kind for celebration. These are warning drums. You sit up so fast your hair practically files a complaint. Throwing off the covers, you reach for your blade. Not the decorative one. The one you always keep close. The one with a nick on the handle where your thumb rests naturally, like it knows its place. Outside, the castle is stirring. Voices call out in clipped whispers. Footsteps echo in rhythm. You slide the door open and see others already dressed and armed, their faces still creased with sleep, but eyes sharp with alarm. You follow them toward the watchtower again, now throbbing with torchlight. Turns out, there's been a report. An intruder, possibly two, spotted near the river path just outside the eastern wall. Could be scouts, could be thieves, could be a mistake. But mistakes get people very dead, very fast. So here you are, 10 minutes out of bed, now part of a rapid response team in the middle of the night. Perfect. You and your team of 5 fan out quietly, a coordinated ripple of shadows under a moonless sky. The eastern path is flanked by pine trees and stone lanterns, normally peaceful. Tonight, it's crawling with tension. As you move, you can't help but think. You've trained for this scenario hundreds of times. Attack at dawn. Intruder under cover of darkness. Sabotage during a festival. The what-ifs, rehearsed until your brain filed them under muscle memory. And yet, when it's real, your senses sharpen like a whetstone just kissed your nerves. Even your nose seems to notice more, like that distinct blend of river mist and burning pine resin from a torch that's slightly too old. You reach the bridge, and that's when you spot it. A set of footprints, fresh, too small for armor, too large for a child. You signal with your hand, open palm, then 2 fingers downward. It means halt and observe. Samurai sign language wasn't exactly taught in schools, but it's an unspoken dance everyone knows by heart. You crouch, touch the tracks, moist, recently pressed, going west, toward the servant housing. You move, fast now, but silent. You pass through the plum garden, now blooming in ghostly whites. A night bird flutters from a branch, startled by your approach. You ignore it. Ahead, movement. A figure, cloaked, slipping behind a shed. You circle around with 2 others while your archer takes position on a rooftop. Whoever this is, they're good, but not good enough to outpace someone with a year of crawling through underbrush just to pass their 3rd trial. You trap them against a wall, and they raise their hands. A boy, maybe 17, dirty kimono, no weapons, shaking like a branch in a typhoon. You lower your blade, not because you're merciful, but because he's clearly more terrified than dangerous. "Why are you here?" you ask. He stammers. Then the truth comes out in hiccuped bursts. He's a runaway, from a rival province. Claimed he was only trying to leave food for a friend who now works as a servant here. Got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. You raise an eyebrow. It sounds ridiculous. But he doesn't look like a spy. He looks like someone who's spent the last week hiding behind bushes and losing arguments with mosquitoes. Still, protocol is protocol. You escort him back. No cuffs, just a firm grip on his collar and a silent warning not to bolt. Not that he would. He looks grateful just to be alive. Back at the tower, your commander hears the report and sighs. Deeply. You're dismissed with a nod, but the boy is taken for questioning. You walk away. You want to feel triumphant, but instead you feel odd. Because here's the thing. Even the smallest intrusion could have been deadly. One distraction, one hesitation, and maybe it's not a harmless teenager next time. Maybe it's a blade in the dark. Maybe it's someone smarter, faster, colder. Historians still argue whether samurai castles were truly ever infiltrated by enemy spies, or if such stories were later fabrications, dramas told to justify surveillance, paranoia, and the romantic mystique of ever-watchful warriors. But the fear? The vigilance? Oh, that part's real. You wander a bit before returning to your quarters, this time not sleeping. Instead, you sit on the veranda. A teapot arrives. Bitter green tea, no sugar, not because you don't want any, but because there never is. Samurai life isn't big on sweetness. You sip. The wind is cool. The stars have started blinking through the clouds. A fox barks once in the distance, probably laughing at your sleep-deprived misery. You watch the courtyard. You count the guards, exactly as many as there should be. You listen to the faint rattle of armor, and eventually, without really realizing it, you drift off. Sitting upright, sword across your knees, still in partial armor. Your last thought before sleep takes you? That cat statue probably has better sleeping conditions than you do. A set of footprints. Fresh. Too small for armor, too large for a child. You signal with your hand, open palm, then 2 fingers downward. It means halt and observe. Samurai sign language wasn't exactly taught in schools, but it's an unspoken dance everyone knows by heart. You crouch, touch the tracks, moist, recently pressed, going west, toward the servant housing. You move. Fast now, but silent. You pass through the plum garden, now blooming in ghostly whites. A nightbird flutters from a branch, startled by your approach. You ignore it. Ahead, movement. A figure, cloaked, slipping behind a shed. You circle around with 2 others while your archer takes position on a rooftop. Whoever this is, they're good, but not good enough to outpace someone with a year of crawling through underbrush just to pass their 3rd trial. You trap them against a wall, and they raise their hands. A boy, maybe 17, dirty kimono, no weapons, shaking like a branch in a typhoon. You lower your blade, not because you're merciful, but because he's clearly more terrified than dangerous. "Why are you here?" you ask. He stammers. Then the truth comes out in hiccuped bursts. He's a runaway from a rival province. Claimed he was only trying to leave food for a friend who now works as a servant here. Got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. You raise an eyebrow. It sounds ridiculous. But he doesn't look like a spy. He looks like someone who's spent the last week hiding behind bushes and losing arguments with mosquitoes. Still, protocol is protocol. You escort him back. No cuffs, just a firm grip on his collar and a silent warning not to bolt. Not that he would. He looks grateful just to be alive. Back at the tower, your commander hears the report and sighs. Deeply. You're dismissed with a nod, but the boy is taken for questioning. You walk away. You want to feel triumphant, but instead you feel odd. Because here's the thing. Even the smallest intrusion could have been deadly. One distraction, one hesitation, and maybe it's not a harmless teenager next time. Maybe it's a blade in the dark. Maybe it's someone smarter, faster, colder. Historians still argue whether samurai castles were truly ever infiltrated by enemy spies, or if such stories were later fabrications, dramas told to justify surveillance, paranoia, and the romantic mystique of ever-watchful warriors. But the fear? The vigilance? Oh, that part's real. You wander a bit before returning to your quarters, this time not sleeping. Instead, you sit on the veranda. A teapot arrives. Bitter green tea, no sugar. Not because you don't want any, but because there never is. Samurai life isn't big on sweetness. You sip. The wind is cool. The stars have started blinking through the clouds. A fox barks once in the distance, probably laughing at your sleep-deprived misery. You watch the courtyard. You count the guards, exactly as many as there should be. You listen to the faint rattle of armor, and eventually, without really realizing it, you drift off. Sitting upright, sword across your knees, still in partial armor. Your last thought before sleep takes you? That cat statue probably has better sleeping conditions than you do. You wake with a start, mouth dry, legs stiff, and a stiff breeze chilling your exposed toes. Not exactly the most majestic way for a samurai to begin the morning, but then again, dignity took a holiday sometime after the 3rd all-night patrol and the cat statue incident. Still perched awkwardly on the veranda, you blink against the dawn light. The sky is bleeding pale pink and gold, like a watercolor that couldn't quite make up its mind. The castle is stirring. Somewhere, a wooden gong signals morning prayers. Monks chant from a nearby temple, their voices rising like slow steam into the chilled morning air. You stretch. Slow. Careful. Vertebrae popping like rice crackers. Today's going to be another long one. But this morning? This morning isn't about drills or patrols or dramatic intruders who turn out to be teenage food smugglers. This morning, you've got something trickier. Court duties. See, being a samurai isn't just about swinging swords and looking mysterious under falling cherry blossoms. You're also expected to be, well, elegant, polite, verbally nimble, emotionally restrained. Basically, everything you're not after 2 hours of sleep and a breakfast consisting of pickled daikon and a whisper of rice. You shuffle inside, change into formal robes, layered silk with subtle family patterns. Comfortable? Not unless you enjoy sweating elegantly. But they're mandatory for what's ahead. A poetry circle with your lord and his advisors. Yes, poetry. Samurai poetry. Haiku, waka, renga. The full alphabet of emotional expression in 17 syllables or less. You're expected to write some, recite some, and somehow not fall asleep in the middle of someone else's epic about a lonely crane. It's easy to joke about, but truth be told, this is a serious affair. In fact, one historical record tells of a samurai who lost his stipend for misquoting a famous poem during tea service. Historians still argue whether the punishment was political, personal, or just the result of an unfortunate metaphor involving radishes. You arrive at the inner hall, where cushions have been arranged in a perfect crescent. A scroll hangs on the wall, inked with this morning's theme, Fleeting Moments, which is poetic speak for please don't write about swordplay again. The room quiets. You kneel, and the session begins. Your lord starts, of course. His voice is low and calm, like a brush moving across silk. A drop of morning clings to the blade's curve, trembling, unsure where to fall. Everyone murmurs appreciation, and not just out of politeness. It's good, annoyingly good. Next comes an elderly advisor who only writes about weather. This one's about clouds that resemble regrets. You're not sure what that means, but you nod thoughtfully, as if you too have stared at guilt-shaped clouds. Then it's your turn. You exhale slowly. You've prepared something simple, but honest. Drumbeat in the night. A fox runs past the gatehouse. No one gives chase. There's a pause. A long one. Then your lord chuckles softly. Not at you, at the image. Fox's messenger, he says. Or fox's fool. You smile, shrug modestly. I suppose that depends on the gatekeeper. This earns a tiny laugh from the archer samurai sitting beside you. She's back from last night's patrol, and you both share the same, we're barely conscious energy. Poetry hour glides on. More verses, more metaphors, more delicate sips of tea served with ceremonial precision. One young noble nearly spills his cup and turns beet red. You generously pretend not to notice. Today's not a day for extra enemies. Then come the calligraphy rounds. You're handed a brush and fresh paper, tasked with painting one kanji character that best expresses your state of mind. You write, fu, uki, meaning adrift. It's honest, probably a little too honest, but your lord raises an eyebrow, then nods once. Well penned, he says. Inside, you're already imagining your next nap. Maybe on the roof. Maybe under the tree where the cat statue now wears a comically small helmet someone must have snuck on during the night. The formal duties conclude with a tea ritual, different from the casual drinking you did earlier. This is the full ceremony, the kind where you fold the cloth just so, clean the bowl 3 precise times, and rotate the cup before drinking like it holds the secret to immortality. You go through the motions, aware that you're being watched, not just for skill, but grace. Samurai, after all, are meant to be warriors and aesthetes, which is noble in theory and exhausting in practice. You manage to avoid spilling anything, don't misquote any poems, and bow at the correct angle. A small victory. The session ends. You're free. And by free, of course, they mean you're now expected to write a report summarizing last night's patrol, because paperwork, much like death, waits for no one. Back in your quarters, you sit at a low writing desk. Ink, brush, parchment. Your hand moves with practiced rhythm, recording the night's events. Patrol route, points of interest, suspicious behavior, foxes included, and final resolution. You add a final note. Recommendation: increase outer patrols on moonless nights. Unusual activity suggests continued caution. Sounds official. Boring. Perfect. You seal it. Deliver it. Then, finally, you eat. A proper meal this time. Rice, grilled fish, pickled plum, miso soup. A servant refills your bowl silently. You eat slowly, deliberately. Each bite both a pleasure and a return to earth. Later you step outside into the garden. The sun is high now, birds dipping low over the koi pond, water catching the light like scattered coins. You watch them for a while. It's easy to forget that these small moments are part of samurai life too, not just sword clashes and court politics. but sunlight, warm rice, a silent nod from your lord after a good poem. Historians often debate whether samurai really felt the beauty they wrote about, or if it was merely cultivated performance. But standing there, one hand resting on the hilt of your blade, the other brushing against the soft bark of a cherry tree just beginning to bud, you think, maybe it's both. Maybe being a samurai isn't about choosing between the sword or the brush, but holding both and knowing when to put each one down. Afternoon creeps in like a lazy cat, golden and slow, stretching across the courtyard stone by stone. The sun is warmer now, and even the castle's walls seem to exhale. You'd almost call it peaceful if you weren't about to be launched into one of the most emotionally complex and confusing roles in the samurai playbook. Mentor. That's right. Today, you're assigned to train one of the castle's younger hopefuls. A boy barely 15, all elbows, eagerness, and absolutely no idea which end of the sword is supposed to point toward danger. His name is Noboru. You remember because it means to rise, which is pretty ironic given how often he falls over during drills. You find him already waiting in the courtyard, wooden sword clutched in trembling hands, face pale with anticipation or possibly indigestion. You can't tell. He bows too quickly. You nod in return. Lesson 1, you say. Don't bow like your head's trying to escape your neck. He blushes. You smile. Not everyone is born into the blade. Some must grow into it, inch by awkward inch. You should know, you used to be Noboru, minus the hiccups. Maybe. The lesson begins. First, stances. You guide his feet into the proper position, nudging his heels with your toe. The foundation matters. A samurai without balance is like a teapot without a handle, useless and very likely to break under pressure. He wobbles. You adjust him again. Then come the drills. Strike, recover, parry. Again, again, again. Sweat beads on his brow within minutes. His breaths turn ragged. His grip loosens. You stop him, hand on his shoulder. Your sword isn't a club. It's an extension of your intent. He stares at you like that was a riddle about clouds and frogs. You sigh and demonstrate. Slow, fluid movements. Controlled power. It's a dance, not a tantrum. He watches, tries again, slightly better. You nod. Then it's on to something more fun. The moving target. You set up a dummy made of bundled straw and bamboo. A passing servant offers a rice cake for the head. You accept because, well, it's a noble cause. Noboru is instructed to strike the dummy mid-run, which results in a spectacular collision that sends both him and the rice cake flying. You don't laugh. Out loud. But as you help him up, brushing off bits of straw, you remember something you haven't thought of in years. Your own mentor, his dry wit, the way he once made you carry water jugs up a hill just to teach you not to waste motion. Historians still argue whether samurai mentorships were formalized institutions or mostly improvised pairings born of need. But one thing is certain. Every samurai who survived long enough to pass on their wisdom had to first learn how to fail. Often, repeatedly, and in front of people who wouldn't stop talking about it at mealtimes. You hand Noboru a canteen. He drinks like it contains divine wisdom. Better, you say. Now let's try something different. You sit opposite him and pull out small lacquered tiles. The game is Go. Ancient, strategic, deceptive in its simplicity. A mental duel disguised as a board game. He frowns. This is part of training? You nod. You want to be a samurai, you must understand war before you ever draw a blade. Every battle begins up here. You tap your temple. Not out there. He places a stone. You respond with a trap 3 moves deep. He doesn't see it. Yet. As the board fills, you explain your decisions. Not just what, but why. Control the corners. Watch the weak points. Expand without overreaching. It's like commanding an army, only quieter and slightly more insulting if you lose to someone who still trips over his own feet. Halfway through, he gets it. You see the shift, the spark behind the eyes. His next few moves are cautious, but clever. A glimpse of potential. Not bad, you say. He beams like he's just been named war minister. Training winds down with stretching and cleaning the gear. You make him oil both of your practice swords, not as punishment, but as tradition. Every apprentice learns to respect the tools before wielding them. As you both work, he asks, "Were you ever scared when you were new?" You pause. A leaf drifts past, landing on the sword rack like punctuation. You answer honestly, "Yes. Every day, sometimes even now." He blinks. "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." It's not the kind of answer he expected, but it's the one that sticks. His hands slow, more deliberate now. There's reverence in his movement. Samurai aren't fearless. That's a myth. What sets them apart is learning to live beside fear, feed it small truths, and walk on anyway. You pat his shoulder and send him off with instructions to rest, reflect, and try not to reenact any heroic battles with kitchen utensils. He runs off. Probably to reenact a heroic battle with kitchen utensils. You shake your head and chuckle. The sun is dipping lower now. A soft orange glow washes over the walls. The practice dummies cast long shadows, their straw faces oddly serene. For a fleeting moment, the courtyard feels like a stage after the actors have left. Quiet, but still holding echoes of effort, laughter, learning. You sit alone for a while, thinking, training. Noboru reminded you of something simple but essential. Strength isn't just about how well you fight, it's about what you pass on, even if it comes wrapped in clumsy swings and bad poetry. And someday, he'll teach someone too. Maybe better, maybe not. But the line continues. A sword passed, a story remembered, a lesson scrawled on paper or etched into muscle. That's the real legacy. Not statues, not songs, just one hand guiding another. Your joints crack as you rise. Again. You're pretty sure your knees used to make fewer noises before becoming a full-time samurai part-time life coach. Still, the day marches on. And you? You've got your next appointment. The local magistrate has requested your presence to settle a dispute. Because of course, when villagers argue about land boundaries or whose chicken is a better egg layer, obviously the best person to call is someone who can decapitate a man with 2 fingers. You trudge to the outer village, sandals puffing dust, sleeves rolled up, half hoping this is about rice taxes and not another cursed melon patch. On the way, you pass fields stretching gold and green beneath the waning light. Children run through furrows, laughing with that invincible squeak only the young can produce. A farmer waves at you. You nod back. This is the part of your duty people don't talk about. Being a living symbol. You're not just muscle with a top knot. You're the bridge between law and livelihood, the visible arm of order. And sometimes that means, yes, refereeing chicken fights and sorting out inheritance drama that goes back 3 generations and involves 3 brothers, 2 fences, and 1 deeply offended goat. When you arrive, the magistrate greets you with a bow and that tight-lipped smile of a man who has lost all patience and most of his hearing. The Matsuda and the Kojiro clans are at it again, he says. Property lines. Someone moved a stone marker, or claims someone did. Honestly, I stopped listening halfway through. You follow him down the road to where 2 old men are already yelling at each other. Behind them, each family has assembled a small army of relatives, folded arms, raised eyebrows, one woman with a suspiciously sharpened gardening tool. You sigh, deeply. Here we go. The stone in question is a squat, moss-covered thing that looks like it hasn't moved since before samurai had surnames. The Matsuda claim it was nudged 2 feet west. The Kojiro say it's always been there, and maybe Matsuda's memory is slipping. You listen. You ask questions. You walk the perimeter 3 times, measure with your pace, check for fresh digging. It's as exciting as it sounds. Still, it matters. Not because the stone is magic, unless you count the supernatural level of petty grudge it generates, but because if you don't help settle this now, it could spiral into late-night retaliation. Maybe someone accidentally burns a shed. Maybe someone's prized chicken disappears. So you do what samurai are trained to do. You read people, you observe the space, and most importantly, you tell everyone to shut up. Respectfully, of course. Once the crowd quiets, you propose a solution. You suggest marking the new boundary with fresh bamboo stakes, visible to all, and have both families agree to a signed document, witnessed by you and the magistrate. Neither side looks thrilled, which is exactly how you know it's fair. Historically, samurai often served as local peacekeepers, especially during quieter eras like the Tokugawa shogunate. They were enforcers, yes, but also negotiators, counselors, and occasional marriage mediators. Historians still argue whether these roles diluted the warrior spirit, or just proved that real strength lies in keeping people from stabbing each other over potatoes. Once the document is signed, you bow to both families. They bow in return, albeit stiffly. The Kojiro grandmother even offers you a steamed bun. You accept. Peace, it turns out, is delicious. You return toward the castle with a full stomach and only a mild headache. On the way, you detour by the riverbank. The light is softer now. Sun leaning toward the mountains, sky smeared in gold and lavender. You sit beneath a crooked willow, shoes off, toes curling into cool dirt. You let your sword rest beside you, its weight a familiar comfort rather than a burden. As you watch the water, you think about the families, the training, Noboru's clumsy grin, the tea bowl in your hand this morning, the archery drill last week, the fox, the poem. And it strikes you, there's never been just one version of a samurai. Some lived for war. Some lived to serve. Some wrote love letters by moonlight and cried at puppet shows. Some were cruel. Some were kind. Some were just trying to survive. There's no single story. And somehow, you found yourself in the middle of it, threading pieces together with every choice, every step, every quiet afternoon spent mediating feuds about mossy rocks. You lean back, close your eyes, breathe. Somewhere upriver, someone's playing a flute. The tune's wobbly but sweet. You hum along, just under your breath. No audience, no expectations. Just the river, the tree, and the lazy buzz of insects announcing twilight's approach. You don't stay long. The castle calls. But for a few precious minutes, you are neither soldier, nor poet, nor teacher, nor judge. You're just still. And that somehow is the rarest duty of all. You're back inside the castle walls, just as the evening lanterns flicker to life, tiny orange suns cradled in delicate paper. The sky is bleeding into a deep indigo now, and the breeze carries the faint scent of sesame oil, pickled radish, and whatever's burning in the kitchen, hopefully not the fish. Dinner. Finally. You make your way to the communal hall where tonight's meal awaits. It's not grand, but it's hearty. Steamed rice, miso soup, grilled mackerel, and a side of simmered vegetables. There's also pickled plum, which tastes like regret dipped in vinegar, but hey, it builds character. You sit among fellow retainers. Some are chatting softly, others eating in near silence. You exchange nods, a few dry remarks, and one raised eyebrow at a suspiciously pale tofu cube. No one speaks of battle. Not tonight. The day's noise has passed, and now, like a quiet pact, you all agree to let the silence speak. This is the part no one paints, the mundane beauty of tired warriors breaking bread. A moment to breathe. A breath to remember you're human. There's laughter, eventually, low and warm. Someone tells a joke about a priest, a merchant, and a drunk samurai. It's not very good, but it gets a laugh anyway. Probably out of desperation, or because the miso's fermented just enough to make everyone a little dizzy. You glance around. These are your people, swordsmen, archers, old war horses, and upstart pups, all of them carrying the same weight in different ways. You eat slowly, savoring each bite like it might be your last. Not because of looming danger, but because the fish is surprisingly excellent, and you suspect the kitchen is never going to pull this off again. Afterward, you wash your bowl yourself, part of the samurai ethos. No one's too noble to clean up after themselves, even if your back creaks like an old gate. Later, you head out to the courtyard. The moon is climbing now, full, round, and bright enough to paint shadows across the gravel. A small group has gathered near the garden for evening recitation. Poetry. Yes, poetry. Bet you didn't see that coming. You sit cross-legged on a smooth stone, listening as an elderly samurai with a voice like falling leaves reads a verse about love lost and plum blossoms falling too soon. His delivery is impeccable, somewhere between gentle heartbreak and I've seen too much. Then another samurai shares a haiku about rain hitting an empty helmet. You didn't expect to feel anything. You're wrong. Samurai culture was deeply tied to poetry, especially forms like tanka and haiku. The most battle-hardened warriors were often the most sensitive poets. It wasn't contradiction, it was balance. Historians still argue whether these poetic traditions were a natural emotional outlet or a state-mandated attempt to keep samurai from combusting under emotional repression. You're next. You clear your throat. Everyone waits. You recite a short tanka you scribbled weeks ago on a piece of rice paper that's been hiding in your sleeve ever since. Steel cries in the night, but softer still is the dawn. When ink stains my hand, I forget the weight of war and remember plum blossoms. The group hums in quiet appreciation. Someone murmurs, beautiful, and another mutters, pretentious. You accept both. As the gathering breaks up, someone passes you a tiny porcelain cup of sake, warm, sharp, and soothing. You sip slowly, feeling it loosen your chest like an exhale you didn't know you were holding. This is the quiet rhythm of a samurai's day ending. No dramatic bowing out, no epic cliffhanger. Just a gentle fade toward sleep, padded by camaraderie and rice wine. You wander the quiet walkways of the castle's inner garden, watching carp flicker beneath moonlit lily pads, their movements silent and dreamy. Somewhere, a cricket starts its nightly performance. A frog offers backup vocals. The whole courtyard feels like a living lullaby. And then, a surprise. A young woman appears at the edge of the garden path. She's a servant, perhaps, or the daughter of another retainer. You've seen her around, maybe once or twice, carrying scrolls or sweeping leaves. She bows. You bow back. There's no conversation. Just a shared pause, the kind that says more than small talk ever could. She offers you a flower, tiny, white, fragrant. You take it. No names, no promises. Just a petal and a smile in the night air. You tuck it into your sleeve, just beside your earlier poem. Might as well keep the beautiful things together. Returning to your quarters, you pass the outer guards, still sharp, still standing, still fighting off sleep like it's a bandit on a midnight raid. You nod. They nod back. Inside, the tatami mats feel cooler now. You light a small lantern, just enough to change the shape of the dark. You remove your armor piece by piece, movements slow, deliberate. You clean your blade, not because it's bloodied, but because it deserves care. Then you place it by your bedside, like always, close enough to reach, far enough to let your shoulders drop. You stretch, your back pops again. Definitely need to do more temple yoga, and then you lie down. Tonight, no scrolls, no tactics, just the soft hush of the wind outside and the gentle creak of the old wooden beams above you. You pull the covers over your chest, feeling their warmth settle over sore muscles and satisfied thoughts. You close your eyes. A full belly, a shared poem, and no one tried to kill you today. That, my friend, is what victory looks like. The night air drifts in through the slatted window, cool, clean, and just a little mischievous as it ruffles the corner of your bedding. You stir, but only slightly, because tonight, you are wrapped in the deep, earned sleep of someone who has done enough. And yet, the world doesn't stop just because you're lying down. From the tower above, you hear the soft footsteps of the night watch as they shuffle along the walkway. Their armor jingles faintly, a lullaby made of iron. Somewhere in the trees beyond the outer wall, an owl hoots once. Another replies. But you? You're just sinking deeper. Your hand still rests loosely on the scabbard of your katana, an old habit that refuses to fade. You could wake and draw in a heartbeat. But tonight, it feels more like a ritual than a readiness. A promise to yourself that no matter how soft you become under moonlight, you'll never be defenseless. You shift again. Just slightly. The flower from the girl in the garden is still tucked into your sleeve, slightly crushed now, but still fragrant. You remember the way she looked at you, like you were more than a blade. Like maybe, just maybe, she saw the poetry in your silence. And before sleep fully claims you, you think one final thought. Maybe tomorrow you'll write her a tanka. Maybe you'll fold it into her laundry or tuck it inside a book she carries. Something quiet. Gentle. Something that says, I am still a man beneath this steel. But sleep has other plans. Your dreams are strange tonight. You stand in a bamboo forest, swordless, barefoot, wearing only your training robe. The leaves whisper riddles. One of them falls, lands in your palm, and turns into a koi fish. You ask it a question you can't remember. It laughs and swims away. And just like that, the scenery changes. You're on the battlefield again. Only, it's different. The warriors don't scream, they sing. Their weapons are brushes, their armor painted silk. You recognize faces, friends, rivals, even the magistrate with his permanent scowl. They dance across the field like calligraphy strokes on parchment. Even your sensei is there, balancing a cup of tea on his head while dodging imaginary arrows. Yeah, it's weird, but it's peaceful too. Like your brain is finally letting you explore the idea that maybe your life isn't just about fighting. Maybe the poetry, the teaching, the little quiet kindnesses, they matter just as much. You wake just before dawn, not from any noise, not from danger. You just wake. And for a moment you lie there, perfectly still, listening to the castle breathe. The others are still asleep, save for a few restless souls murmuring in dreams or shifting under their futons. You rise slowly, dress in layers. Tie your belt just a little tighter today. Before breakfast, before drills, before the noise. You step outside, into the courtyard still wrapped in shadow. The sky is beginning to lighten, first pale gray, then brushed with lavender. You walk to the training circle. It's empty. Not for long. With deliberate grace, you begin your morning kata. Movement smooth, precise, deliberate. A dance of memory and discipline. Each step is a verse. Each swing, a punctuation. You are writing poetry in motion now, one that no one will hear but the wind. And it's enough. Because this is what it means to live as a samurai. Not the glamour, not the violence, but the rhythm, the purpose, the strange, noble peace that comes from knowing your place in a world too large to conquer and too beautiful to ignore. Today will bring new tasks, maybe another duel, maybe another land dispute, maybe, if you're lucky, a second flower. But for now, it's just you and the wind. And for the first time in a long while, you feel, no, you know, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Word count, 1035, wind down, 300 words. So now, you let your breath slow, let your shoulders soften. The world you just wandered fades into quiet shadow, like a candle slowly dimming behind shoji screens. The sword rests, the castle walls are still, and the sky, once painted in bold colors of day, now settles into the calm blue-gray of dreams. Your body remembers every step of that samurai's path, every duel and poem, every nod and nightfall, every heavy silence, every fleeting smile. But now, none of that matters. Not for this moment. Not as your breath drifts deeper and your heart quiets its rhythm to match the whisper of the wind outside your window. Because no matter how brave, how disciplined, how sharp the edge of your resolve, rest is not weakness. It is renewal. So let your thoughts unravel like a silk ribbon. Let the sound of bamboo leaves brushing in the wind carry your worries far from here. You've done enough. You've stood tall through the ceremony, through the swordplay, through the silence of moonlight and meaning, and now it's time to return, to yourself, to stillness, to sleep. So close your eyes, let the katana rest beside you, silent, sacred, still, and let your soul ease into the kind of peace that no war can touch. You are home, you are whole, you are safe. Sleep well, noble warrior, sleep well, sweet dreams.